Hi golfers, Nick here for Nick Taylor Golf. It's Friday, so welcome to another lesson on golf tips. This week in golf tips, I'm going to teach you golfers out there how to extend like the tour pros. Go back a few years in the world of golf coaching. Turning has always been seen as the most important thing in the backswing and in the downswing into the finish. It wasn't until Mike and Andy came along in the stack and tilt system that these movements of the body were clearly defined in extending and tilting along with turning. In today's video, we're going to talk about the extending piece of the golf swing. So I have the GOLFTEC motion measurement sensors on, one on the shoulder and one on the hip, and we're going to be talking about how these move in the time and space of the golf swing to show you what the best players in the world do. So the extension piece of the golf swing is basically me extending my spine backwards, and that's a really important piece of the golf swing. In the backswing we have some degree of extension or backward bend, and then we have some in the finish. So in today's video I'm going to show you an example of what the best players in the world do and what the poorest players in the world do, and show you guys the difference between how you should move your body and how you probably do. GOLFTEC's been around for 25 years, and in that time we've measured thousands of different golfers, different handicaps, different abilities, and there's a strong correlation between how the best players move and how the highest handicappers move. So as you take a look at the screen here, you can see my shoulder bend here is around 50 degrees. So that's me bending forward. You can see the sensor at the top of my spine here is bending forward around 50 degrees. Now in the backswing, the sensor reader will point somewhere close to zero, even a slight backward bend or a slight forward bend. So if you put your club in your chest here, you can see how pointing that up pretty much horizontal to the ground is going to take that to a zero position. And that's what we do in the backswing. So the best players learn how to bend backwards and extend the body. So you can see how it's a slight backward bend at this stage. The highest handicappers, in our experience, they tend to stay more forward bend in the backswing. So you can see how that stays in a forward bend. If I was to keep the most forward bend in the backswing, you'll see how my head moves away from the target here. And the same in the finish. If I was to maintain that forward bend, you see how my head moves downwards. In my experience, there's a strong correlation between how far you can hit the ball, how far you bend backwards, and how easy it is to keep your arms straight. If you make a backswing and you bend backwards, it's much easier to keep these arms straight. As soon as I start turning and keeping a forward bend in the golf swing, it's very easy to start bending the arms, and you see this a lot. Golfers, they kind of bend forward and bend their arms, and the same in the finish. The best golfers, they extend their body backwards and backwards in the finish, and that helps them keep their arms straight. So we're going to do a test here. We're going to take a look at a swing where I maintain my forward bend, and then we can take a look at another golf swing where I kind of try and move my body like the tour players. So the first one is going to be me trying to maintain this bend as much as possible. Okay, so I exaggerated that. We're going to take a look at that swing in a minute on the video. But let's just hit my tour player swing. So that one's gone around 108 meters, just hitting an 8-iron here. So that was me trying to bend forward like the highest handicappers. So now I'm going to try and bend backwards, extend as much as possible, and extend in the finish. So that's me extending. It was a better shot, certainly more speed in the swing. Pitched around 135 meters, which is pretty much standard for my 8-iron. So you can see the difference in distance there, 30-40 meters difference. The ball speed was a lot higher as well, so ball speed jumped up to well over 100 miles an hour. That first one was at 84. So you can see how the difference on the video. Let's take a look at those swings in a little bit of detail, just to show you guys how the shoulders bend in the golf swing. I'm going to take a look at these two shots here. So on the left hand side is the high handicapper swing where my ball speed was only 83 miles an hour. This one was at 110 miles an hour on the right hand side, kind of my tour player swing. Let's take a look at the differences here. So I'm just going to bring the shoulder bend onto this screen here. So obviously on the left hand side, this is my high handicapper swing that we saw. It didn't go very far. So right from the start of the golf swing here, you can see how the shoulder bend starts to decrease a lot quicker on the right hand side in my tour player swing. So by the time we get up to position 2, you can start to see the difference in the forward bend is increasing almost by 20 degrees by this stage. As we get past to left arm parallel P3. Again, big difference, 35 degrees difference here. And then by the time we get to the top of the golf swing, this is a huge difference here. So what we're looking at here is on the left hand side, the sensor that's on the back of my shoulders there is still pointing downwards 35 degrees. You can see how that's kind of moved my head away from the target. On the right hand side, this is actually pointing backwards 5 degrees, so big difference there. Another interesting thing about this is how much I've actually turned or rotated. So in the golf swing there, by staying in forward bend, I'm having to really turn my shoulders to create this longer golf swing, or as long as possible. On the right hand side, because I've changed my bend a lot quicker, it's made it much easier for me to turn. So even though the swing looks a lot shorter on the left, I'm actually turning more degrees, and this is the point here. We have to learn how to extend the body to help you turn and help you keep the arm straight and stay centered in the golf swing. Let's take a look at what happens as we start back down here and move into the finish. So by the time we get into the finish position here, you can again see the difference in the bend of the shoulders. So we're looking at 25 degrees backwards as opposed to 14 degrees forward. So this kind of looks like the tour play on the right and the high handicap on the left. And again, the forward bend there is steeper, it moves the club path more out to in, and just makes it a lot harder to create speed in the golf swing. By bending backwards, extending, it makes it much quicker to swing the golf club. So big difference there between sort of the high handicapper swing and the tour player. So certainly a strong correlation there between how the shoulder bends and how much distance and how long the golf swing is. So we talked there about how we measure the shoulder bend. So if I take my setup here, if I put my club in my chest here, you can see how this club points down towards the ground. So by the time we get to the top of the backswing, this club should point horizontal to the ground. That's me moving out of my forward bend into an extension. So at the top of the swing, we'd expect that number to be as close to 0 as possible. You saw there, when I maintained that bend, it pulled my head away from the target, makes it a lot harder to turn. So I'm swaying off the golf ball. You saw how I thought the interesting thing was that I actually turned more staying forward bend, and that was creating a shorter golf swing. So not only did it restrict the power, it also kind of caused me to sway off the golf ball. So extending in the backswing is important, but also extending in the finish. So if I put my club in my sternum here, we have that extension in the backswing to around 0, but the best players in the finish actually extend past 0, closer to 30 degrees of backward bend in the finish. You saw there in my 2 swings, in the high handicapper swing, my shoulder bend stayed more forward. And again, that restricts the speed of the club. It also changes the angle of attack of the club into the golf ball. So the more you stay in forward bend, the more steeper it is, the more out to in the club would be, and the slower the swing speed. So if you can learn how to bend backwards in the backswing and in the finish, that's going to help you extend and create more distance for the arm. This is something I work on day in, day out with golfers here at GOLFTEC. So I'll share some examples of golfers that have increased their shoulder bend in the backswing and the finish to help them play better and to help them keep their arm straight. So many golfers kind of stay in forward bend, and it causes these arms to flex. It makes it really hard to control the low point of the swing. So if you can learn how to bend properly in the swing, make a big difference. If you practice making some swings, staying in forward bend, and then trying to learn how to extend, that's really going to help you get the right feeling that you need in the golf swing. So if I go onto the mat here and just practice kind of staying in forward bend, it's a much harder way to control the low point and to create speed in the swing. If I start to learn how to extend and bend, certainly going to create more speed in the golf swing and have more potential control over the low point. So hopefully that video really helps you. It's cleared up kind of a myth about how we turn in the golf swing and how we need to bend and extend to play better golf. So thanks for watching, golfers. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you again next week for another video.